Hey, this is Patrick Curtis, CEO and founder of Wall Street Oasis. Today we got a great chat with Jordan. Jordan was working for a few years outside of graduation. He graduated in 2021 from Auburn University, had done a few years in FP&A, but was looking for more. He listened to how he basically he leveraged the academy, leveraged all the resources within it to get himself prepped for interviews. And then in that first interview, he nailed it. He got a role as an analyst with a really well-respected IB in the Midwest. Take a listen. Hope you enjoy. Jordan, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
I'd love it if you could just give the listeners a kind of short summary bio of where you're from and yeah, the last few years.
Yeah, for sure. I attended Auburn University and graduated back in 2021. And when I was there, I was involved in various organizations, but none that were involved in the finance school. It was like operations supervisor at the rec center and then a couple intramural and club activities. But after that, I graduated and started at SCA Health, where I was a financial operations reporting analyst and was able to start there and report on the financials of the facilities that we were responsible for and communicated to certain stakeholders like the CEO and board of each one.
Mhm.
And then after there, I jumped over to FP&A at North Star Anesthesia and have been there for 2.5 years and finally was able to break into investment banking.
Nice. And so where you're going to be headed?
DA Davidson.
Nice. So,
And
so this is a really interesting path. This is a little bit more of a non-traditional path. So 2021 grad, when you were in school, were you, I know you were a finance major, but were you thinking like investment banking or high finance out of the gate? Or did you try tell us a little bit about what you did. I know you had this operations internship part-time. Were you putting yourself through school? Just tell us a little bit about like, why not go do the traditional thing, or did you try and what happened?
For sure. I, to be truthful, didn't know a whole lot about the high finance world. Both my parents, growing up, worked in the healthcare industry, both in accounting and finance departments. So I always just naturally felt like I was going to end up somewhere within that kind of world. And as I mentioned earlier, I was able to, but it just wasn't the right fit for me. So I just started doing my own research about a year and a half ago and was able to find actually Wall Street Oasis and was able to learn a lot more about it. And especially being from a non-target school, it seemed like the only path for me to break in is to dig my heels in and go for it with the academy.
Nice. And so let's talk a little bit about like it sounds like you didn't even know like me in college, I didn't know like what this whole investment banking thing was. And my dad was in healthcare, your parents were in healthcare. Did you think when you got out and you were doing more of like the operation stuff, you were doing some stuff that was relevant, like you had put together board materials. Did you feel like you had been working for a couple of years, right? So you had been at SCA and then you worked to jump to FP&A more officially and you got promoted after a couple of years. Did you think, oh, did you start looking? I guess my question is, did you start looking when you were there because you felt like, hey, I wanted more? Did you feel like, what was like the impetus to even look at this stuff? Because it's a very different life. For FP&A, you're probably working
Yeah.
40 hours a week
Yeah.
and having a decent living. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. It was interesting because I came out of school like at the peak of COVID. So a lot of work was remote. And to be quite frank, I had a lot of downtime in between like calls with direct supervisors. To be honest, I was just a little bored
Yeah.
whenever I was going through my day to day, just because there wasn't enough work to go around. And especially being remote, you can't just stop by somebody's office and just start up a conversation. So that's when my interest to like really find something that was a little more intense and a little more at a quicker speed to learn. That was mainly the key reason. And then the other thing was my father-in-law has actually been an entrepreneur for the past like 10 years and been able to sell off a couple companies, and hearing from him about the deal process has been pretty fascinating. So I wanted to put myself in a position that was able to work on deals.
That's great. Yeah. So open your eyes of like, oh wait, there's a whole other world of finance out there. It's not just
Yeah.
P&A and budgeting and monthly forecasts. That's really cool. So it sounds like you found us right around that time. Like you had already been working for a year or so. And then you looked at the academy and thought, hey, this is a way to maybe accelerate my learnings. What did you take advantage of? So obviously resume review right when you came in.
Hmm.
Did you do boot camps, mocks? Tell us a little bit about how you leveraged us to get ready. And then I want to hear a little bit about your networking and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. Yep. I tried to utilize every resource that the Academy had available. I will say I leaned more on certain ones than others. For example, I think I did basically all your basic self study courses in the course library just to really help me with the technicals since I didn't have any experience with them. Was able to utilize the resume interview, the networking practice interview. That one was very beneficial. I think going into it, I had a pretty good understanding of what needed to happen, but just being able to polish that and bounce ideas off of mentors was really helpful for whenever we're networking. The mock interviews, I did a couple like full practice mock interviews, but for the most part, they were used as strategy sessions for me. Doing it all over again, I would definitely do more practice, like full practice interviews, but it worked out. So no complaints here.
Yeah. And I guess one question on that, did you do any boot camps on the weekends? I know you said like you needed a little more like the accounting foundations. Did you do the foundations boot camp or any of those IB interview boot camp at all?
I did. I did the FNV boot camp, evaluation boot camp.
That's a big one. Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
long one.
Yeah, it is long, but very beneficial. Recommended to anybody who has the opportunity to do it. Also, I did the recording of the IB interview boot camp.
Cool. Cool. Talk to me a little bit about like when you decided, okay, I'm going to do this, you got in the academy. Talk to me a little bit about your like networking or your process around like uh interviews. Did you get like a bunch of meetings? Was it like, hey, within your first 10 meetings, things started breaking for you? Um, Talk to me a little bit about like numbers. Was this the first bank you interviewed at? Was it, the 10th? Talk to me about just numbers because sometimes it happens right away because you've done the work. Other
Mhm.
times I've had students who it's like their 15th interview or 15th firm and they finally break through. So tell me a little bit
Yeah,
about that, about your journey there.
yeah, for sure. So I probably networked with, I think, about 30 different bankers,
Great.
and I guess I wasn't like going as hard as I could have been with networking,
Mhm.
but I was in a weird situation where my wife was about to graduate from her grad school, so we were still trying to figure out where we were going to be. So I could have went a lot harder on there, but uh, I only got one interview, so I went one for one with DA Davidson, and I had a lot of great networking calls. It was just early 2024, so interest rates were still high, and I don't think people were as apt to
Take on
lending
a
an
lateral
offer
analyst.
out.
The
Yeah,
lateral
absolutely.
analyst market was pretty dead. Yeah, early 2024. Was the interview technical at all? Was it mostly behaviorals? Did you feel like the work you put in on the behaviorals and the stories helped at all? And was this another Auburn kind of alum that spoke with you there? Or how did you even
Mhm.
land that interview?
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of Auburn alums like helped me get to this point,
Yeah.
so want to shout them out.
Yeah.
But also for the interviews, they were mostly behavioral. There was one interview, so there were 3 rounds, obviously.
Yeah.
One of the second round had a little bit of a technical portion, and they were pretty easy to walk me through DCF and then just drill down into from there.
Yep.
And then the super day that I went to is mostly like behavioral and why I wanted to go into IB. Tell me about yourself was being able to work my tell me about myself answer with Wall Street Oasis, I think was the main reason why I got the offer because it was just what we used in the interview to go down different avenues of what they wanted to discuss. It was a big, big piece of why I think I landed it.
Nice. And then when you were in there doing the rounds in that super day, was it like 10 interviews back to back, three, like did you have any 2-on-1s, good cop, bad cop situation? Or was it all just pretty standard in the morning? And then did you get a call like that day?
It was pretty. So it was 4 interviews. It was like a half day super day. Good cop, bad cop. They were all like
Yeah.
really nice and welcoming, and
Yeah.
they were genuinely interested in why I wanted to do this. Felt good. And then I learned that I got the offer like 2 days after, I think. So after I didn't hear from back from the first day, I was pretty worried, but we
That's
got the
awesome.
call.
Was the father-in-law happy and the parents happy? Did they even know? Your parents are probably like, don't even know what it is, but like, was your father-in-law impressed?
Yeah, my family has been great support throughout this entire process, and they were all super excited for me.
That's cool, man. And so what city are you going to be in, and when's your start date coming up?
It is going to be in Denver, so I don't have to relocate, which is really nice. And then start date is January 2nd.
That's awesome, man. I'm super happy for you. Amazing job leveraging everything and making sure you are ready, and happy to hear that the resources helped. Any other kind of final words of wisdom from other people who are graduated, if they've already graduated a few years ago, maybe feeling like they missed their window? Because to be honest, looking at your background, what you pulled off is not easy, because it's actually, we get FP&A, you don't have the lateral, the
Yeah.
standard lateral kind of profile. You're not in deal advisory. You're not in like a valuation shop, right? So tell me a little bit about that. Like any final words of wisdom you want to share with anybody?
Yeah, so obviously timing is everything. You have to have a couple things fall your way. But if you treat it like a job whenever you're going throughout this recruiting process, I think it helps a lot. There were a lot of long nights after work where I was like trying to study for technicals or network, just like investment banking in general, even though I'm not in it. From what I've heard, hard work can get you a long way. So I think if you just put your head down, no matter like what background you have or inexperience or experience, whatever it may be, you should be able to break through if you really want to.
Yeah, I think it's great advice. It's something that for the people who already have a full-time job, taking on, especially if it's a demanding job, taking on the academy is not an easy proposition. It's something where doing the coming home from work and then having to do that, or doing the weekend, is
Yeah.
not always the easiest thing. A lot of people think they can do it because, oh, I really want
Yeah.
this, but then they come home and they're like, oh man, now I got to go do a boot camp or do a mock interview with this mentor or something. And it's, oh man, this is tough. But listen, I really appreciate you coming on, telling your story.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Jordan, and congrats again. Super impressive. And yeah, let's stay in touch.
Thank you so much. Sounds good.